this room and leave the world outside these doors, and just gift yourself with this hour to connect with this greater potential, this greater love. We call God, Spirit, Source, Allah, whatever word makes you feel connected to the divine nature that guides and directs every aspect of our lives. In this hour, you have the potential to step into that which you want to become in life, and leave behind the limitations and the belief systems that no longer serve you. So we're going to do that by starting with chanting. And they say to chant or to sing is to pray twice. So we encourage you to sing along with us. Norma and I will call the affirmation, and then you guys will respond with Louie and Larry. And then you'll get a talk by Jack, and we'll close the meditation.
Once again, I have to ask for volunteers following this service to help clear the altar for the next service. I appreciate that. So far, it's worked out beautifully. Let's keep that going. Last Sunday, I shared what I consider to be one of the all-inclusive sections of A Course in Miracles. And I'm going to start with that today. Can we have this first PowerPoint, please? This is the old Course in Miracles text, 533, or the new edition, 575. In quietness are all things answered, and is every problem quietly resolved. In conflict there can be no answer and no resolution, for its purpose is to make no resolution possible, and to ensure no answer will be plain. A problem set in conflict has no answer, for it is seen in different ways, and what would be an answer from one point of view is not an answer in another light. You are in conflict. Thus it must be clear you cannot answer anything at all, for conflict has no limited effects. Therefore, God must have given you a way of reaching to another state of mind in which the answer is already there. Such is the holy instant. Attempt to solve no problems but within the holy instant's surety, for there the problem will be answered and resolved. So I'll leave it up to you if you're not familiar with A Course in Miracles. You can see the same truth being given in the book of Romans by Paul. Be not transformed to this present age, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. It is better said this way, excuse me. Be not conformed to this present age, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And it's talking about the thinking of the world in which we were born and raised, educated. And as we grow, we assume that at some point we'll be able to figure things out. And what the Course is saying and the Bible says is you can't figure it out. We haven't got the ability intellectually to figure out without entering into an alliance with this divine awareness and intelligence we recognize to be God. It is not beyond the ordinary intelligence to realize in the beginning that the holy instant and the here and now awareness of Eckhart Tolle are exactly the same thing. And you will hear, different spiritual teachers in time, they always come to this place because this is the place where we can only experience truth. Everything beside the direct experience of truth is simply a pointing. That is someone pointing to a better way to be alive and to exist in a greater understanding and awareness. But that's only second-hand information. This is the reason why John the Baptist said, they asked him, are you the Christ? Are you the Christ? He said, no, I'm not. One who is among you, and it can be interpreted within you, whose sandal I am not even worthy to unlatch, is the Christ. So all the teachers down through the ages, if they're worth their weight in salt, will eventually come to the realization. This direct experience, which is found in the holy instant, in the present awareness, the here and now, is the path to enlightenment. It is the path to enlightenment. Aside that is to live an unenlightened life. That means you'll never be at a place of knowing. You'll always be tossed to and fro by the changing tides of circumstances. So that's what we're about understanding. At first glance, when you look at the holy instant and the teachings of A Course in Miracles, the unawakened mind assumes that, well, what happens in the holy instant is I concentrate more, or I have this better concentration, and therefore I'll be able to figure out my problems, and I'll resolve my problems. But that's not exactly what the holy instant is really all about. The holy instant is a moment in which we simply rest, our willingness to rest from that initial state of consciousness in which we grew up. The initial state of consciousness is the development of the personal ego perspective, which is natural in its own way. It has its purpose. We grow in ego awareness and develop this whole idea of body consciousness. And it's necessary for us to think in those terms and to have it guide us to move forward. But what has happened is that we've become so locked into the ego idea and definition of life that we haven't allowed the more refined, expanded awareness at the core of our being to express and be understood. We haven't allowed that. So it has literally closed us off. If you want to think of it in these terms, you can think about when you maybe started riding a two-wheel bike and you had training wheels on it. At some point, you're able to ride the bike, you can balance it without the training wheels. And if you go on with the training wheels, they're simply going to be in the way. And it's the same thing about having developed this first idea of life and self being separate from all other living things. You can see how that has to be transcended. The mind came into that in its growing up, but then it has to get to that place where it sees the futility of attempting to live from that perspective, because it cannot bring about healing, harmony, peace of mind, love. It can't bring that. The only thing that can bring that is the rising of our core being, our one-on-one relationship with the intelligence that is the universe itself. That's what we're about doing. So, there is a necessary idea that the illusionary interpretation of self propagates. And we have to be able to see through it. It's a natural survival idea that I must secure my particular position, my point of view. You see how you develop the point of view from your birth on up, you develop an ego. And that ego defines your point of view. Your point of view is simply your collection of beliefs over that period of time, because you see life through your collection of beliefs. And the supposition is that you see life correctly. But of course, the miracles telling you what is clear from one point of view is not clear from another point of view. And you'll always be in conflict if you're operating from only your limited point of view. So there's no way out of it, because you're not a separate objective observer. And you're trying to assume that. And you're trying to make your point of view prevail over conditions and circumstances in the world. But in fact, you must see how that plays out. It doesn't bring you peace, doesn't bring you understanding, insight, love, joy, or healing. If you really want to heal, you've got to get serious about transformation. Otherwise, you can't have a quasi-relationship with the divine intelligence at the core of your being. It has to be a real effort to want to be still, to do the meditations, and to allow this more refined intelligence to expand within your own mind. And otherwise, what you will be doing is chasing the world as we see it, especially in this Western culture. People continually thinking that somehow or other I will be able to secure my position in the world, I will find happiness, I will find peace. I did rub shoulders with multimillionaires, and specifically for a while way back in New York City, I worked in an ad agency, and the owner of the agency worked there, and he had his partner work there, and we did advertisement for some very wealthy people. But even then, I knew there was something wrong with these guys. They didn't have peace. They had a lot of fear. They had a lot of money, but they had a lot of fear around it. So something was missing in all of that. And then at an early point in my life, when I wasn't anywhere near being where I am in consciousness now, I could see that was not the path. And I did know a couple of people, but one particular couple, listen to this, see if you can get a hold of this. This couple would buy a house so that they could fix it up and live in it and keep fixing it up and then flip it. And then they'd buy another house. It was always to flip the house. And they never really were living in the house. It was always simply an object that they would someday make more money from. The same thing with the cars that they bought. They bought a new car, at least a new car every year, in order to appear to be prosperous and so that they could carry on their business they had. One was a real estate person. I think the woman was a real estate person, and he worked in investment banking. But everything they owned was something that they were going to gain more money for. In fact, they even had a couple of pedigree dogs. And they didn't have dogs the way I have dogs, or maybe the way you have dogs. They bred these dogs to have offspring that they would sell. So the whole object of their consciousness was that money eventually was going to make them free. But how could they be free if they were never able to live in their own house? To never relax in their own house? To be able to spill something on the rug and be okay with it? Or to just, to raise dogs that you couldn't even you had to be aware of that you're going to sell their offspring and that's why you have them. There's no real compassion or camaraderie with those animals. So I'm saying that there is a madness. And the masters refer to the ongoing insanity created by the illusion that we seem to allow ourselves to remain in. Thus, the holy instant allows the universal awareness to replace the ego body-centered awareness, establishing peace and love and insight where we only had fear and striving and guilt. There's nothing wrong with having a job. There's nothing wrong with pursuing to be well off, to have enough financial acumen to get on in life in a meaningful, easy way. But take it just as I said it right now. Put it down there and lift up your spiritual practice, because you have to have that. The ego must be subjugated to spiritual awareness. It serves, it goes out and operates and does what it does, but it must always have the insight and the awareness of the divine, what we call the higher self or God consciousness. Without that, what you have is a world going to hell in a handcuff, as we are right now in this world. Because people are still trying to operate from that illusionary definition of life. What is missing is what Marianne Williamson said on Friday night. What is really missing? Look at this. Everybody has incredibly ideas. How many books have been written? Self-help books, New Age books, all about, all about the law of attraction and setting your intention and all of this. Oh, it always goes on and on and on. The great world is filled with money. Everybody can get some, and you can have enough, enough, enough. Let me tell you something. Listen to it. Listen to it. What is missing in that whole scenario? It is the second most feared word in Western culture thinking. What is missing is conscience. It has been eliminated from the scenario. It is considered not needed. Get whatever you need and get ahead. And it doesn't matter who or what may be hurt in the process or looked past and looked over or not considered. So you see, it's not that guy with the new car and the dogs that he's breeding and the big house. It's not him. It's the guy who has found peace because he has entered into the divine awareness. And the voice for God. What's the still small voice, people ask? What is the still small voice? You don't have to go any further than that. Look at this. You came to church this morning, and now you're going to find out what the still small voice of God is. The still small voice of God is conscience. It requires introspection. Look within on the decisions you make and make them from that higher level of awareness. So that if there's something that you're involved in doing and you really feel that you have to get it done, check in and find out. Are you stepping beyond the guidance of the living God? Because in doing that, you only create inharmony. Eventually it'll come to visit you even in the material plane. You're only creating inharmony. So that's what we're about doing here. And you know this particular quote here, the reason why I like it, it says, in quietness. Eckhart Tolle says, in stillness. The teachers all say, in meditation. Quietness and stillness. You will find the resolution and the answer to your problem. But it's not like the unawakened mind thinks, that you'll figure it out. It's not that. It means that in that quietness, ultimately, what is truly valuable, will dawn on you. I am okay just as I am, where I am, doing what I'm doing. And all I have to do is be okay with it in the moment and give everybody else that I'm involved with that same okayness. And I'm one with it all because I'm blessing it and being blessed. And then whatever you need will come to you on every other level because you're now in alignment with love. Take all the books that have been written about setting your intention and getting it all done and piling up the money. Take those and get down to one thing that's going to make you prosperous. Love is the attracting power in the universe. When you get into divine love, you are in enlightened awareness. So I'm going to share this with you from Alan Watts about the mind and meditation and stillness, so we don't make a big deal out of it. Can we have this? That's the Eckhart Tolle. Yeah, you know what? Let's skip that and go right to Alan
So
Watts.
then let's consider first of all, what is a mind in the grip of vicious circles? Well, One of the most obvious instances that we all know is the phenomenon of worry. The doctor tells you that you have to have an operation. And that has been set up so that automatically everybody worries about it. But since worrying takes away your appetite and your sleep, it's not good for you. But you can't stop worrying, and therefore you get additionally worried that you are worrying. And then, furthermore, because that is quite absurd and you're mad at yourself because you do it, you are worried because you worry because you worry. That is a vicious circle. So now, can you allow your mind to be quiet? Isn't it difficult? Because the mind seems to be like a monkey, jumping up and down and jabbering all the time. Once you've learned to think, you can't stop. And an enormous number of people devote their lives to keeping their minds busy and feel extremely uncomfortable with silence. When you're alone, nobody's saying anything, there's nothing to do. There's this worry, this lack of distraction. I'm left alone with myself. And I want to get away from myself. I'm always wanting to get away from myself. That's why I go to the movies. That's why I read mystery stories. That's why I go after to girls or anything that you do, or get drunk or whatever. I don't want to be with myself. I feel queer. So, well, why do you want to run away from yourself? What's so bad about it? Why do you want to forget this? Why do you want to become yourself? Because you are addicted to thoughts. This is a drug. Real dangerous one. Compulsive thinking, going on and on and on and on and on all the time. It's a habit. So there's a difficulty about stopping that activity. And you really have to stop it if you want to be sane. Because if I talk all the time, I don't hear what anyone else has to say. Then I'll end up in the situation of having nothing to talk about but my own talking. Or so in exactly the same way, if I think all the time, I won't have anything to think about except thoughts. So in order to have something to think about, there are times when you simply must stop thinking. Well, how do you do that? The first rule is don't try to. Because if you do, you will be like someone trying to make rough water smooth with a flat iron. And all that will do will stir it up. So in the same way as a muddy, turbulent pool quiets itself when left alone, you have to know how to leave your mind alone. It will quiet itself.
This is one of the points of meditation, that you sit, you become still, and actually you're involved in the process of becoming one. You're becoming okay. With what? With the moment just as it is. Not wanting, not grasping, not contemplating, not figuring, not measuring, letting. In meditation, letting the moment be whatever it is. And as you do that enough, you learn to live your life, even in the marketplace, of pursuing with a preference, no demand. You have a preference, you're trying to get something done, accomplished, you follow that. But you don't have a demand that you have to get it done, it must be done, you have a time limit, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. That's over with. You're letting whatever is taking place be taking place. And you are one with life and being guided by the higher awareness in doing that. I'm going to conclude this with this final quote. You know, this final PowerPoint. Course in Miracles 289, the old text, the new one 311. The reason this course is simple is that truth is simple. Complexity is of the ego and is nothing more than the ego's attempt to obscure the obvious. You could live forever in the holy instant, beginning now and reaching to eternity, but for a very simple reason. Do not obscure the simplicity of this reason, for if you do, it will be only because you prefer not to recognize it and not to let it go. The simple reason, simply stated, is this. The holy instant is a time in which you receive and give perfect communication. This means, however, that it is a time in which your mind is open both to receive and give. It is the recognition that all minds are in communication. It therefore seeks to change nothing, but merely to accept everything. Look at this last line here. Can you imagine this? You're only that line away from living an enlightened, joy-filled, happy, insightful life. That's the only line. It's going to defeat you if you can't get there. If you cannot recognize that every mind is in communication, there is one mind, one presence, one power, so that whatever you're really thinking and carrying on in your own awareness and the actions you're taking and everything are all being affected. They are being reflected back to you by other minds. And you say, that's reality. Yes, it is. But if you want peace, you have to bestow peace. If you want love, you have to give love. If you want joy, you have to be joyful. Because every mind around you is reflecting what you believe is true. There it is. That's the bridge. It is the recognition that all minds are in communication. Live from that. It therefore seeks to change nothing, but merely to accept everything. We'll do that together now in meditation with our bowls, allowing ourselves to relax in this refined energy. If you don't have a particular meditation technique, you can use this particular thought as your mantra in the silence. Everything I look upon, everything I see is only God revealing me. As we go forth from this meditation to those places we occupy in time and space, let us go forth with a greater openness to being present, allowing the moment to unfold, having only gentle preferences, no demands, no conflict, just willing to bless and be blessed. And for this opportunity in every moment, let us feel gratitude for the knowing. And to this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. As we're preparing to do that, let me remind you that we have an incredible 11 o'clock service. Tisha will be guiding that service. And beautiful insights on how to live in the presence and the love of God. And we also have our Saturday evening service. You might want to try it out. It's at 5 o'clock on Saturdays. It's guided by Shad Groverland. So, if you're not doing something on Saturday evening, stop in. As we take our offerings in our hands, let's bless them with this offering statement. Just know the truth of this offering statement. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give. Together, please. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give.